Hey everyone. In this video, we are going to start setting up our email verification system. Um, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I think it's pretty cool. I use this on a lot of my other authentication apps, authentication setups on some of my other apps. And I went ahead and did a lot of the work, and I'm going to go over and explain everything. So instead of this being like a coding session where you code along with me and everything else, I've created a lot of the files. And in the description below, there is a link for some of the files. And then the rest of it, I'll show you because it's smaller snippets of code. You guys can pause it and type everything in to get it up and going. I'll also have a link to my GitHub page because I'm creating different branches for the new sections that I'm doing. So you can go straight to this section and get the code that you need. So let's go ahead and get started. So go ahead and go down to the description text, and there'll be a link to download some files. When you download it, it's going to be a zip folder. When you unzip it, there'll be two folders in there. The first folder is called an email folder. I want you to copy that entire folder over to the views directory. And then the second folder is actually a utils folder, but we already have one. So it's going to be an email helper and a helpers.js file. Just put those two files in that folder. And then here, let's go ahead and install the dependencies we need. So it's just two. So we're going to do npm I at sendgrid/mail and HTML to text. Hit enter, let that go through. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to SendGrid. If you don't have a SendGrid account, go ahead and register. Verify your account through them, and once you get logged in, you should be on a page somewhat similar to this. If not, you should at least have your nav bar here. If you go to Settings and API Keys, go to Create a new API key, type in a name, whatever you want, and for the sake of this tutorial, just leave it on full access. You can read their documentation on how to do restricted access. But for now, we'll just leave it like this. So type in a name, leave it on full access, hit create and view. Once you do that, it'll give you a little pop-up with the API key. Click on that to copy it, and then hit done. And then back in your code editor, I'm not going to open up my actual environment variable file because I got a lot of other stuff in here I don't want anybody else seeing. So I created an example. You're going to want these three in your environment variable file, and that API key that you just created and copied, you're going to put it here. Email from is going to be whatever email you want to show up when you send an email to a registered user or to someone who forgot their password and everything else we're going to do with this email system. And then the name here is going to be what the name that shows up on the email itself. So you can do YelpCamp admin, you can put your name, whatever you want to put here. But you want these three inside of your environment variable file. If you're not running in environment variables, then in the utils folder in email helper, up here at the top, you can put the SendGrid API key here. You can replace this right here with your name. And then inside of these brackets right here, you can put in your email. So let's go ahead and go over these files real quick, because now that you've got these in, you've got the dependencies installed, and you've got your API key and everything, we've got the most of it set up as far as being able to use it. So here we're going to pull in SendGrid. We're going to set the API key. We're actually using EJS templates for sending the emails. And by doing this, we can dynamically load content into the email. And we can also style the email a little bit and actually make it look better than it just being just plain text. And then the HTML to text, what that does is some email applications will not render HTML. And some people actually have it set up in very well-known email applications like Gmail or anything like that to not display HTML and just display the text. So what this does is it'll actually take the rendered HTML from the EJS template and convert it all to just string. And it looks for anything within like a paragraph tag or an anchor tag and things like that, and it only displays that. And then we create the email class. We set up our constructor for the user and the URL. The user is obviously it's the user that created the account. The URL is the URL to send back to verify their account. So we set to the user email. The username is the registered user. The URL is the URL for the verification, and then the from is going to be the name and the email address that you set up in the environment variable. Then we create a send function that pulls the template, which is going to be the template here. And if you look in your views and your emails, I've got 3 templates right now. We're just going to worry about the welcome one first. The styles.ejs is literally just styles that are getting brought in. So when you look at the welcome, it's actually bringing in the styles here. I did that just to keep this file small. So if we go back here, when the send function is called, which will be called further down, we're going to render the file from the template. We're going to set the username, the URL, and the subject. Well, once the file's rendered, we're going to run an async function. We're going to get the result. We're going to define HTML as the result, and then we're going to set up the mail options for SendGrid. So obviously, who the email's coming from, who it's going to, the subject. HTML is the rendered HTML for the email, and then the text is just the text version of that mail. Then we're going to send it. And then we got a catch block here, and for now we're just going to console log the error. If this messes up, the catch block on the controller will catch it. So later on you can actually throw a new error to go to that catch block and just custom define it, but just for now, if we do have an issue, we'll just console log it for now. The send welcome is what the user gets when they register their account. So that's going to become the template. So when you send an email out, you're going to have the title. The welcome is the template right here. And then obviously you've got the subject. And the same thing goes for the password reset and the send and to notify the user that the password changed. That way, if their account was compromised and someone changed the password, they didn't do it, they'll still get an email saying, hey, your password's been changed. The helper file does 2 things. This is kind of like a middleware file. The set URL takes in the request, the route, and parameters. So when you're sending an email and you create a verification link, when you're building it out in development, obviously you're just going to send them back to localhost. But when you go into production, you have to go back in and change everything. Doing it this way, this will pull the request protocol, which is going to be HTTP or HTTPS. It automatically sets that. Your host is going to be localhost or whatever domain it's connected to, whether it's Heroku or whatever. The route is going to be whatever you've got it set up for. So in this case, it's going to be /verify. And then if there's any parameters after that, so a query string for the token or anything like that, that's what comes after. It says check if not verified. What this does is this will go over, and when someone goes to log in, it's going to check their account to see if they've verified. If they have not, it's going to throw an error message and it's going to redirect them and they cannot log in. They have to verify their email before they can gain access to their account. So, one more thing we're going to do, and before I go over what I've done to the user model, what we need to do is, and I'm using Mongodb Compass. Last time I used the terminal to remove sessions. If you're using a local install of MongoDB, you can actually download MongoDB Compass and use this. If you're using Atlas, you can use this with Atlas, or you can log into Atlas itself, and you can see the exact same thing that I'm seeing here. But under your whatever database you're using for YelpCamp in sessions, make sure you remove all your sessions. You don't have to delete your user. I deleted one for the sake of this tutorial because I wanted to be able to register and show you guys the email and everything. But make sure you delete your sessions. In the user model, we're going to add these two here. So if you guys want to pause it, add this in, and then I'll go over and tell you what this is. So when a user registers, we're going to set is verified to false. And that goes back to that middleware check. So if they try to log in and it says that is verified as false, it throws the error and it says that they can't log in. It's either going to be true or false, and we set it to required. I did not set a default here like there is for this expires one, because if the user account is updated for any reason and you don't set that, and if for whatever reason is verified as messed with, it could potentially set it back to false when it doesn't need to be. So we're going to manually tell it whether it's verified or not. Expires is going to become a date field. This one I do have a default of undefined, and I'll explain why in a second, and I've got it set to expire in 24 hours. So what that means is if someone creates an account and they use a fake email address, well, obviously they're going to get sent an email token, and if it's a fake email, it's not going to go anywhere. Well, now they can't log into the account because they can't verify, and now we've got just some random account sitting here. With MongoDB, you can actually set a time to live index, and you can set it for whatever time you want, and in this case I've got it set for 24 hours. So the user account that gets created, if they do not verify their account within 24 hours, and you can change it, you can do 48 hours, you can do a week, you can set it for whatever you want. But I've got mine set up to where if they do not verify the account in 24 hours, it'll automatically remove that document. And then right here on yours, it just says user schema plugin passport local mongoose, and that's it. Well, we're going to change this. And what we're going to do is in this object, we're going to activate or turn on limit attempts. By default, this is false with passport local mongoose. When you turn this on, it's automatically going to unlock some pretty cool stuff. Now, the interval and the max interval, and maybe the max attempts, I don't know, but I know these are the defaults. I just have them in here for the sake of explanation. The interval is based off of milliseconds, and so is the max interval. So when you log into your account, there's now going to be an attempts field, and it's going to default to 0. So if you log in correctly, it's always going to be 0. If you log in with a bad password, that attempts field will increment by 1. So how many failed attempts you've had. This interval setup is designed to go by how many times you've falsely logged in versus the date and the interval. And they've got some math going on to where after so many attempts, it's going to go up to 300,000 milliseconds, which is 5 minutes. And I can actually add that here. Is 5 minutes. 100 milliseconds is pretty quick. If I'm not mistaken, I think your eye blinks at 300 milliseconds. So 100 milliseconds is pretty quick. So when you log in the first time and it's incorrect, you can just immediately try to log in again. After you've logged in 3 or 4 times with a bad password, that's when you start getting a message saying you've logged in too many times, please wait. If you keep logging in incorrectly, it's going to time out at 5 minutes. And if it's counted itself down and you try to log in again, it's going to keep incrementing. And it's going to constantly, and it'll stick at 5 minutes. So you have to wait that 5 minutes for it to cool off. That's where you can log back in. If you've tried to force past that and you get to 10 attempts, the account is automatically locked. And the only way to unlock the account is by user intervention. So the user will have to reset their password. They will have to, do something to gain access back to their account. And that might be a feature that we implement to where it checks the max attempts, and if it does equal 10, we'll send an email to the user. I don't have that set up right now, and that's something that you guys can even do with this after, it's been fully built out on your end. The too many attempts error is a little generic. a lot of the error messages on Passport Local Mongoose are rather generic. It gets the point across, but they're a little generic. So I just added onto it. The default is account locked due to too many failed login attempts. And then I just added the please reset your password to unlock your account. And then everything else is the same here. So I'm going to save this because I added that comment in here. Then create a token.js file in your model. And right here, you can put everything in. And then I'm going to go over it. And it's pretty much the same thing. The token is going to belong to the user. So we've got the user ID. We're referencing the user. The token, that's going to be the token that's sent in the email for them to verify. And the same thing with the expires. Except this one expires in 10 minutes. So when the user registers, the flash message will pop up and tell them to check their email and that the email link will expire in 10 minutes. One of the next videos, this is going to be like a 3 or 4 part, but one of the next videos will actually create a way for them to request a new password token. And that'll check to see if the user account hasn't been removed yet. And then if it hasn't, it'll send them a new token. They can verify their account that way. But that way they've at least got a way to get a new token if they accidentally deleted it or they had a problem with their email or whatever. So this expires in 10 minutes, so they get the email. If they don't check their account in 10 minutes, the link's bad, they have to request a new one. And if it's a spam account, this will go away in 10 minutes, and the user account goes away in 24 hours. So it's some pretty cool features that you can set up, and there's more to this. So if you Google Passport Local Mongoose, go to their GitHub page and read all the options. There's a lot of different errors you can modify. You can do a bunch of stuff with this. You can do a custom password function to check certain things. So you can use Joy for that, but you can also set up to where if their password is less than so many digits, if it's not alphanumeric, there's a lot of different things you can do to set up to check passwords. So now that all that's set up, we can look at the emails real quick. The styles.ejs is just styles. I'm pulling in the styles here. And email is really weird. It doesn't necessarily like using div tags and stuff like that. It's usually set up in table format. And you can actually look for HTML templates and you can kind of make your own. This was actually found online. And I just redid it in EJS. So in here in the content, so you've got start content and end content. Right here is where everything's at. So we're going to do hi username, welcome to YelpCamp, we're glad to have you. Please click the link below. Down here is the link. The URL is that URL I was telling you about. And you'll see more. You'll see what I'm talking about, how that helper function helps out here once we get to the controller. And that's it for the welcome email. So I'm going to shrink this down. I'm going to go into the controller. I'm going to go to the users. We've got to declare these 4 variables and require the files. Crypto is a built-in package. We're going to use that to create the token. The email helper, which is this email helper here. The helpers file, which is here. And like again, that's just for setting the URL, and we're going to check to see if the user's not verified. So I'm going to leave this up for just a second. That way you guys can copy and get this stuff set up. And then here on the register page, and this is a little bit bigger, I'm going to try to shrink this down some. There we go. Now you can see everything. So this changes a little bit. The email username and password for rec.body stays the same, but in the user object we're now doing is verified as false, and we're setting that expires to date.now. That way once this document is created, that's when that time to live kicks in, and MongoDB will start checking that. Then we create the registered user and we create the document. Now we're going to create the token. The token is linked to the user ID. So the registered user, we get the ID from that. That's now linked to that. And then we just create a 16-bit hexadecimal string for the token. We save the token. And then here in the URL helpers, we're going to call rec. Now, if you go back to that URL's helper file, rec is going to be your rec.headers.host and rec.protocol, so HTTPS and then localhost 3000. Verify is going to be the route that you want it to go to, so we're just going to do localhost 3000 / verify, and then / token, and then here's the query string, and then this is the user token that's been created. And then this is where we call the email. You can use user right here because we've got the email and it's pulling from that either way. The URL is here. This is that URL that we just created. So once the email's been sent out, then we're going to get the flash message, and it's going to tell them that the link expires in 10 minutes. It's going to redirect back to campgrounds, and all is good. Let's go ahead and in the routes file, in user.js, what we're going to do is, we've already got that helper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the controllers. I'm going to grab this right here. I'm going to go up to the top. I'm going to grab this helpers again, because this is helpers that can go and just pretty much work anywhere you need it to. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go here onto the user's route file, paste this in, and then what I'm going to do is right here, and I'm actually going to clean this up a little bit, that way it's there. So on the post route right here, we're going to do catch async helpers, check if not verified. We'll put a comment in right there. And what this will go ahead and do is this sets up the check to see if the user hasn't verified their account. So all that's set up and done. We can close out these files. Okay, so now that we've got all that done, we've got all the code implemented. And if I spoke too fast and went over it too quickly, I'm sorry. Please go back, watch it again, pause it, get what you need from it. If you have any questions, let me know. But now we're going to go over here. We're going to go to YelpCamp. We're going to go to the register. I'll use the pre-populated name. That's fine. Type in my email, create a password, and click on register. Now, for some reason, the flash message didn't pop up. Every now and then that happens with me. I'm not sure why. There's no error message in the console. Everything worked just fine. And that's something else I'll try to debug and figure out. And if I find out what's going on, I'll create a fix. So, go to round cube. I'm going to hit refresh. And now we have this welcome to YelpCamp. That way I don't get spam, I'll allow it. So it comes up, so it says, "Hi Daryl, welcome to YelpCamp. YelpCamp, we're glad to have you. Please click the link below to verify your account." And you click on this, and if we click on it, it's not going to work because at this moment we don't have anything set up for the route. So I know it's throwing a potential security issue. So if we hit this right here and we hit go, I ain't worried about that. It's not picking up because it's not able to reroute itself out. That is kind of weird because it works on... I'm going to copy the link. It could just be a Firefox bug. I'm going to open up Google Chrome and see if it works there. So one thing I hate about Firefox is it's ridiculously secure, which is a good thing. But also, the link is going to be really long through SendGrid because we're on localhost. If you have a domain, you can go through their steps to verify it, add some records to your DNS, and you can customize these links to where it doesn't have all this crazy stuff. But if we hit this and go to it, there we go. See, Chrome didn't stop it. So it says page not found. Well, obviously it's not. We haven't created this route yet. That's what the next video is going to be for. But if we try to go to login and we try to log in, it won't let us. It's going to pop up and say your account's not active. Check your email to verify your account. So, with that being said, we've at least got a way to authenticate the user to make sure that they have a valid email address. And we now have a way to prevent them from logging in if their account's not active. And to test this, what I can do is I can go into Compass here and see now this is what shows up, user object. And it does show the salt and hash now. It does show more fields now that you've enabled that limit attempts. But attempts is at 0. You got your name, you got it as verified. So I can change this to true and hit update. And if I go to login, it'll pass and it'll let me in. So we go back to the user document and hit refresh. The last time logged in has updated, but attempts is still 0. If I log out and try to log in, and let's go type in a wrong password, it's going to say password or username is incorrect. If I go here and I hit refresh, attempts is now 1. If I keep doing it and type in a wrong password, it says it again. That's 3. That's 4. That's 5. That's 6. So yeah, 6. So we've currently got to the 5-minute limit, I believe. I believe this error only shows up once you've hit the limit. So we have to wait 5 minutes. We can log back in. Or at this point, we can tell them we forgot our password and we can reset it. Don't have that feature built in yet. After we get the verification set up, we'll go from there. If you don't want to wait the 5 minutes, you can hit refresh. You can click on attempts here, go to it, type in 0. So you can, that's one thing I love about doing this and using either the Atlas web interface or Compass, is because you can update documents on the fly like this and not have to go through the terminal to do it. I love using the terminal on a lot of things, but this just makes it a lot faster when you're developing stuff out. So now I can log in with the correct password, and we're good. Okay, guys, that's it. Sorry about the confusion with Firefox. Going back to it, Firefox is ridiculously secure. I love using it. It's a daily driver for me when it comes to web browsers. But when it comes to development, it can be a pain sometimes. So if you run into problems like that, a good debugging tip is to try another browser. If you get the same error on both browsers, then you know you have a problem with your server, a problem with your code. But Google's a little more lenient. Firefox is heavily privacy based. So just a little tip. So anyway, that's it. I will start working on the next video here pretty soon. Hopefully I'll have it up today as well. And I'll see you guys soon. Thanks a lot.